Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a Saturday edition of the Garden Report. 2 days from game one. Smiling on the other side, there's Kristian Winfield, who just found out he's on the front page of the New York Daily News.
Oh, man.
Tomorrow, the Sunday edition?
Yes. I've gotten Sunday back pages before. I think, obviously when I was covering the Nets and we had KD and Kyrie and James Harden, that was a lot of big news going on. And I've gotten a banner on the front page before, like a little maybe 4-inch rectangle going across the top of the Daily News that had a callback to the back page, but never have I gotten the entire front page. Like the actual local news has the banner right now, which is our lieutenant governor trying to get our money back, whatever that means. I guess we got to figure out what's in the Daily News tomorrow to figure out where our money went. But in terms of the main story on the New York Daily News front page, that's your boy. You know what I'm saying? And like I was just telling you, little me who started planning out this journey in high school, never would have imagined that I'd have a front page sports story. Front page is usually reserved for local political news that actually of serious things, right? At the end of the day, we're covering a game of basketball. So for me to be writing about a game of basketball and that to be on the front page of the New York Daily News, man, what more can you ask for?
So I was saying before we got on here, I follow the back page Twitter account there. I love looking at what's they're putting together there. We don't have that in Boston, man. Like the Globe's great. Awesome coverage. They don't have the front pages, the back pages like that, the tabloid. The Herald used to have those, but that's kind of, deteriorated a little bit, at least the print edition. So, we don't have those, flashy, wacky, witty back pages. So I'm always, every single day looking at, all right, what are they talking about in New York? What do they got on the back page? What's the headline? And they're so good every time.
You know what it is, honestly, in New York, people are moving at 125 miles an hour. So you have a split second to get someone's attention, let alone to read.
And people
something.
Still read the newspaper, right?
Sometimes, right? Everyone's getting on their phones. You know what I'm saying? Everything is. I don't know how many people actually read anymore, right? We're talking about people that are consuming their media through videos and TikTok right now. So God knows what the actual numbers are instead of how many newspapers are selling. But in terms of actual getting people's attention, you've got to have something front and center on that front page that's going to convince a reader who's on the move already to pick up your paper. So our back page guys do a great job. Our front page guys do a great job. I'm just blessed to have a front page. You can bet that soon back there, I'm going to have that framed maybe right over there. You see that little where Flavor Flav is right there?
Hold on.
Flavor Flav got to go.
It up.
Yeah, Flavor Flav's got to go. I'm going to have that front page right there in my backdrop. It's a great day.
Let me pull this up for the people right here. There we go.
Wow, man. That's beautiful. Like the little kid in me right now is just like beside himself. Man.
So what'd you write? What's in there? What are the people reading in this article?
That's where things get real, right? Because the Celtics went 4-0 against this Knicks team during the regular season, and it was the same old story every single time. The Knicks can't guard the three-point line. And my editor called me today. Actually, he goes, Kristian, how many times are you going to write that the Knicks going up against the Celtics are going to struggle at guarding the three? I'm like, that's what is going on in this series. Like, if the Knicks can't guard the three-point line against the Celtics, they're not going to stand a chance. 4-0 is what they went in the regular season. There's a chance that happens again in the playoffs if they can't do this, right? And you're talking about a Celtics team who's taking advantage of everyone from the three-point line because you're able to put 5 guys out there, because you're able to have Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford and Luke Kornet. But if you talk to Tom Thibodeau, more important than Luke Kornet shooting threes is how he can create offensive rebounds and then spray it out to somebody else who can shoot a three, right? So
I love Tibbs talking about Luke Kornet today.
Yeah, it's a compounding issue, and it all goes back to, can the Knicks guard the point of attack? Can the Knicks stop the Celtics from getting into the paint and then spraying out and creating more threes? So we've got that. We've got Karl Anthony Towns in this paper as well as somebody that I think is an X factor. Just during the season, games that Cat scores 25 or more, the Knicks are 22-12 in the playoffs, and against the Pistons, when he scores 20 or more, they didn't lose. Right, so he's an X factor in there as well, and so is OG Anunoby. These are 3 things that you'll see in the newspaper tomorrow morning. OG Anunoby had Cade Cunningham looking like something that's not a superstar. We all know how good Cade Cunningham is, But in the regular season, Cade Cunningham averaged 31 on 50-50 splits from the field and from three-point range. What was the difference? Mikal Bridges was guarding him during the regular season. And Tibbs made that adjustment. And Mikal is a great defender. He played an incredible defense in the first round. But OG got $212.5 million because of what he was able to do to Cade. And we're hoping, if you're a Knicks fan, that he's able to do that to Jason Tatum in some way, shape, or form, because the Knicks couldn't stop Tatum. Tatum averaged 33.5 against the Knicks in 4 games this year. That tied what he averaged, I believe, against Cleveland. Those are the only 2 teams where he averaged 33.5. You're not going to win the series if Tatum is averaging 33.5 in the playoffs, right? So it's going to start there. But obviously, as we know, we're going to talk. The Celtics are just a handful, right? Because if it's not Tatum, it's Jaylen Brown. I sound like Tibbs now. If it's not Tatum, it's Jaylen Brown. If it's not Jaylen Brown, you got Derek White, you got Drew Holiday. Peyton Pritchard can come off the bench and get you 30. So it's going to be tough. It's a tall task for the Knicks, but, you know, they're talented on paper. They're starting to build. I think that first round was good for them to have to really band together to scrap against Detroit. Detroit is a tough team. But at the end of the day, the Celtics are the reigning champs. They're going to light it up from 3. And if the Knicks can't stop that 3-point shot from falling, the series is going to be over before it even started.
So this guy here thinks the word of me is going to get back to the Knicks here. I'm as fair as it gets. I thought the first round was going to be a struggle for the Celtics, and it kind of was. 5 games, but they were tough games. I don't see it going into this one for the Knicks. And I wanted you to maybe come on here and give a little bit of a sliver of hope for them. But just looking at all the numbers, you threw out the Tatum ones. The team numbers are even crazier when you look at that. They shot over 40 as a team from 3, over 50 or 50 on the dot from the field as a team. That's crazy stuff offensively that the Celtics did in this matchup. And the first 2 games were massive blowouts. Next 2 were a little closer. The last game was really close there. And I guess if you're looking at it from a Knicks perspective and saying, all right, how are they going to compete here? It is the fact that they have the full roster intact now. Mitchell Robinson, that was the only game he was available for, and it was the most competitive game by far. And they should have had it up 3 with seconds to go. Didn't foul, give up a 3 to Tatum, and then you lose in overtime. So I guess that's the path, but I just don't see them being able to string it together defensively enough to be able to stop the 3, as you mentioned, to be able to slow Tatum and Brown and everything else. I remember Josh Hart, one of the trips to Boston, they was just rattling off the names. He was like, you got to count for Hauser, you got to count for Pritchard, you got to count for this guy, that guy. It's a handful, and I don't know why, but this Knicks team hasn't been as good defensively as they maybe looked on paper going into the year.
Yeah, and a lot of that goes back to the point that you raised. Mitchell Robinson didn't join the team until February 26th. And what happens once he joins? Knicks are a top 10 defense. Who could have seen that coming? That's how good Mitchell Robinson is, right? And then when you put him out there with Karl Anthony Towns, which is what I asked about today, and I'm writing for tomorrow's New York Daily News, they create a duo of big men that can really go out there and impose their will on the glass. This is another area, surprisingly, that they struggled in the first round against the Pistons. So you're hoping to combat that offensive rebound. I know you guys sometimes can go with Kornet and Porzingis out there and go double bigs. They're looking to combat that a little bit. You're hoping to, have a little bit more, I guess, stability on defense, knowing that if you get beat, you got Big Mitch in the back to protect you. But at the end of the day, the Celtics just have so many different ways that they can get at you, and a lot of that starts with Tatum. And then also there's the Jaylen Brown and Mikal Bridges matchup. I like that matchup if I'm the Knicks, because Mikal Bridges, he didn't shoot the ball well really up until Game 6, and he got 25 points, 11 to 16 shooting from there. If he's carrying that into the second round, that maybe changes things a little bit. But defensively, I'm not necessarily worried about Mikal guarding Jaylen Brown. I might be in the minority there because Mikal's gotten a bad rap for his defense this year, but a lot of that has been because he's been guarding the 1A all season. You're putting him on a second guy. I know Jaylen Brown has the potential to be a number 1, as we saw last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I like Mikal in that matchup, and I think that that's going to be really what we're here to watch, right? If OG and Mikal, this is why you give OG $212.5 million. This is why you trade 5 draft picks for a guy like Mikal Bridges, right? And everyone's going to sit there and rightfully say that's a lot of draft compensation to give up for a guy. Mikal played a great series on the defensive end against Detroit, and if he's able to replicate that against Boston, and OG is able to replicate what he did against Cade, against Tatum, now you're forcing the other guys on the floor to beat you. The other issue is the Knicks just can't stop Kristaps Porzingis from shooting threes this year. I think he had 7 threes on 13 attempts, or 8 threes on 13 attempts, something like that in the last game. They're going to have to figure that out because they're a defense that likes to play drop coverage, and Kristaps is just going to pick and pop you to death. So we'll see. It all comes back down to that 3-point line. I think individual wing defense is an area that the Knicks clearly improved on. And if that translates to round 2, it's really going to come down to if you're putting this team in rotation, can they close out? Can they take away the open threes? And can they just stay locked in for 48 minutes? There are so many times where they let guys who aren't supposed to get 30 get 30. You let Pritchard come off the bench and give you 30. You let Sandro Mamu-Kelashvili on the Spurs come on and give you you let Aaron Wiggins come off the bench with the Thunder and give you 19, not miss a three. Like, these are things you can't let happen. So if they stay locked in, if their wings do what they're supposed to do, and I even said his name once, if Jalen Brunson shows up the way he showed up the last few games in Detroit, this is going to be a super competitive series. But at the end of the day, you're giving the edge to Boston because even though the talent on paper is starting to stack up, this is a team that's the reigning champs. This is a team that is going to destroy you from three-point range if you're not locked in. And this is a team that just has more camaraderie, has been there before, has done it already. This is the first year of a Knicks team that's come together. So obviously people are going to be rightfully siding with the Celtics in this series. But if the stars align, the Knicks can make this more competitive than those first three games. Those first three games are not indicative of where this team is right now.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the Robinson defensive piece because I didn't know that. And when I look at this, I think of three things. Brunson, like you mentioned, OG, who I looked yesterday, held Tatum and Brown in their matchups to 6 for 25, which is way better than I remembered. He wasn't great offensively in those games. I think he shot 29% from the field, but his defense was great. And then the Robinson piece with Towns. And, I think they played, 40 minutes together in the regular season. He came back late. They didn't go there a ton last series. You didn't see it a substantial amount. And, I'm sitting there and I know a lot of Knicks fans in my life too are just like, why won't they go there more often? And double big, you look around the league, the Şengün stuff, the Adams stuff you're watching in Houston, even what the Celtics have done with that look this year. I do think there's a lot of potential for those two together. And I guess I get the argument that you're getting less offensively from Towns, maybe if you move him over to the 4. But moving him out of that point of attack defensively, those screening actions, all the stuff a center has to go through, I think is so ideal for this team playing better defense. And again, you said it, they're top 10 defensively since Robinson's back. That's something.
Yeah. And this is exactly what I asked Kat about today at practice. I asked him, how does his responsibilities change when Mitch is out there versus when Mitch is not out there? And the first thing he said was, hey, look, this is what I've dealt with when I was, well, not to say dealt with, but this is what he is used to doing since he was in Minnesota playing with Rudy Gobert. This is
he
what
was great.
This is what the team envisioned. And even Tibbs, going back to before Mitch came back, was said, hey, we looked at Mitch as our starting center, but the fact of the matter is he just took too long in his rehab to even think about starting him when you have to ease a guy that's been out for 10 months back on a day-to-day basis. So they kind of had to ramp him up. But now we started to see it in the Detroit series. And this is something that I was saying coming into the playoffs. That Cat and Mitch two-man lineup is really an X factor here because it changes what they're able to do on both ends of the floor. What did Cat say today? He was talking about Mitch, and he was saying, look, when he's on the floor, he's a positive for our team with his natural God-given intangibles and obviously his ability to defend at a high level. And it gives us a different offensive attack scheme, and it gives us more different opportunities that we have in our lineups to do. He's a special man. He's always been special, right? So number one, that addresses part of one of the bigger concerns, which I also wrote about. I wrote about this too many times for the Daily News. But when you bring Mitchell Robinson back, depth was a real concern, right? And so was size off the bench. But when you're able to bring Mitchell Robinson in, and when you're able to put him in alongside Karl Anthony Towns, hold on now, we're not so small anymore. Because now you got OG out there and you got Mikal out there. That gives you 4 players on the floor who are 6'6", 6'8", and 2 7-footers out there. And then you got Jalen Brunson there too. So, or you have Deuce McBride. So it gives them different options on both sides of the floor. And I personally think it's their best lineup. I think when you have Mitch and Cat out there, the issue is the depth behind that now because Porty was out, because he traded Jericho Sims, because Precious Achiuwa isn't getting any minutes. Now you're playing around with how much depth.
Who's taking the hit, Hart?
Hart, but Hart can play. You can sit Hart for a couple minutes here and have that line out and then bring him out. Listen, Josh Hart is going to play. He was
playing 46 minutes.
He's going to play 46, 45 minutes, right? It's just when you're considering having to account for Tatum and Brown out there, then you have to have Mikal and OG out there as well. So if you're going to run that lineup with Cat and Mitch and Tatum and Brown are on the floor, then Josh Hart is probably the odd man out in those minutes. But end of the day, Josh knows he's going to play something like 42 minutes a game this series because this team can't really function without him out there. He does everything for these guys.
Yeah, that lineup, I think it was plus 13, plus 14 in those 40-ish minutes or whatever it was during the regular season, looking at it. And it was good offensively. And I think the one thing the Knicks are going to have to seize on in this series is the offensive rebounding. And it was close in the 4 games. Again, Robinson misses 3 of them. Porzingis missed 2 of them as well on the Boston side early in the year.
Yeah.
So the front court changed quite a bit as the series progressed throughout the year. But the offensive rebounding was close across all the 4 games. The free throw rate was close. That was the only win that the Knicks had across the 4 factors there. The shooting obviously was a massive Celtics win. And then I believe the turnovers was a small Celtics win as well. So like in those little numbers, in those little areas, there were 3 that the Knicks could try to swing in their favor here. But the Celtics don't foul a ton. They are pretty attentive on the boards. You know, you can beat them there if you really turn up the heat, but they focus a lot on that. And then the turnover thing, the Celtics turn it over less than any other team in the league, but that did creep up a little bit last series. And I do wonder, you know, you mentioned at the beginning of that Magic series they're coming out of here. To me, I think coming out of that Magic series for them is just going to be a massive relief for a lot of the guys who struggled. Porzingis among them. Pritchard couldn't get shots off. Hauser didn't score until game 4. There were so many guys on the Celtics who struggled in that series. And to me, going against a less physical defense, a less imposing defense, a lower ranked defense, to me is going to relieve a lot of those guys. But I guess there's another school of thought, too, that those guys coming off struggles or just not being as involved or whatever it was in that series for them, maybe that carries over. Like maybe Porzingis isn't as effective going into the series as he was throughout the regular season after struggling against Orlando. Maybe Pritchard doesn't have as much rhythm. I don't know which way that's going to swing, but it was a grind for a lot of these guys offensively on Boston coming out of that series. They couldn't get threes off. They couldn't really score as much as they usually do. It was a Tatum and Brown ISO show. And that's probably what the Knicks want to try to make continue here.
Yeah, you know, it's unfortunate, but teams have somehow found a way from going shooting ice cold to shooting red hot when they play the Knicks, right? That's just kind of year it's been. So it would be no surprise if they go from shooting, what did you guys shoot, 32% against the Magic from deep in the first round? It'd be no surprise
like
if you guys
30 attempts a game. Yeah,
you got, unless the Knicks are able to pull a complete 180 in this series from what we've seen in the regular season. And I wrote about this too. The Pistons got looks from downtown, clean looks. They just couldn't make them. Tim Hardaway Jr. shoots 31%. Malik Beasley, who makes the second most threes in the NBA behind Anthony Edwards, to the point where Anthony Edwards has to make, what was it, 1 or 2 more threes than him in the very last game of the year. Games 2, 3, and 4, Malik Beasley can't hit an open 3, right? And if he's knocking some of these shots down, this series could very well still be going right now. Mind you, the Knicks won one game because Tim Hardaway Jr. got fouled at the end and didn't get free throws. If he gets free throws and makes 2 of the 3, Pistons win that game, right? And then in game 1, the Pistons were up double digits, and then the fourth quarter comes around, the Knicks go on a never-before-seen 21-0 run, and that ends that game. These are things that you can't really expect to happen, and things that won't happen against the Celtics. The Celtics not letting you go on 21-0 run, and they definitely not shooting whatever it was that the Pistons shot from three-point range, because the Pistons got wide open looks and couldn't make them. So they have to tighten these things up, because if Boston is coming in there walking into open looks from downtown, it's going to be curtains very soon. That being said, obviously these are things they know. Obviously, Tibbs was talking about it today. They're looking at what Orlando did and going to try to replicate some of that, because if you can take the number 1 3-point shooting team in terms of volume and have them only taking 31 threes a game in the series, that's a massive win already, if you can do that. That being said, despite the fact that Orlando held them to 31 threes a game, this series was over in 5. Right, so the Celtics can beat you in a variety of ways, and just when you think you take one thing away, they got somebody else who could beat you. They got somebody else who could beat you, or Pritchard is coming off the bench to save the day. It's just so many weapons that they have. So I think one thing that we have to look for from the Knicks is Deuce McBride. Right, he's got to be someone who's got to really try to combat those Pritchard minutes and really hold him to really less than whatever he's been shooting, because Pritchard just found a way to light up the Knicks this season.
I think that's so important. Yeah, because when he comes into the game, even if you get off to a good start, he can come in and hit 2 threes and just swing things. He can get an offensive rebound. He was a much different player this year, obviously winning 6-man, and brought a different dynamic to that second unit. And the bench battle will be important here too overall, I think, because you got Hauser, you got Cornette. I love that Tibbs is stressing Cornette because he had a phenomenal year. Wasn't as good in that first round, again, among many guys there, but I felt like he was good in this matchup. Obviously a former Knick, heading back over there, and has changed his game quite a bit over the years here. He's become a favorite of mine on this team. So there's a lot to account for there. And a lot of these guys struggled in round 1, like I mentioned. And like you said, a lot of guys have shot great against the Knicks this year, especially on the Celtics here. I want to take a quick break to tell people about Game Time, which has your seats for the series. I was looking, I think it's in the hundreds for the games 1 and 2 in Boston. I think it's over 200 for the cheapest ticket at MSG for games 3 and 4 in the series, unsurprisingly here.
No,
on
it's
Game
over 400.
Time.
It's over 4. Oh, on Game Time, it's 200. Well, that's what I've seen for games 3 and 4. It looks something like $400 at MSG. So if y'all have it less than that, then somebody needs to hop on that because
that's the place to be. Yeah, Game Time's got the deals, and the deals get better closer to Game Time. I'm seeing 282 for Game 3 right now in New York. I'm seeing 456 for Game 4. So Game 3 is what you're looking at. But the Boston games are the cheaper ones for sure on here. And again, wait up until Game Time. You usually get a better deal over there. And I love the app experience. You get panoramic views of your seat. There's some wacky views in MSG if you haven't been there. So you're going to want those. You get all in pricing, so you know what you're paying ahead of time. There's always flash and zone deals going on. And again, this series is going to be a tough ticket. I'm interested to see who gets tickets on either side, like either Celtics fans in MSG, either Knicks fans at Boston for these games. It's going to be interesting. So whichever way you're going, or if you're just staying at home in your market here, Game Time's got your tickets. Go over there and create an account. Use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You got baseball going on now too. You got concerts, you got events, comedy, all that. It's available over on Game Time, and $20 off your first purchase right now when you use the code CLNS. Game Time, yeah, it's a great experience. Loved it. You've used it for years. We've told you about it a million times over here. So go check it out and support our coverage with our great sponsors like them. We'll be heading down to New York for these games. So again, check out Game Time. Last minute deals, lowest price guaranteed over there. So that's Game Time. Go check it out. Let's get into where's your mind go next on this one? I'll kind of let you choose here.
In terms of this series, that's tough, right? Because you know where my mind naturally goes when I think about this series. I think about the last game the Knicks played against the Celtics, where Jaylen Brown clearly didn't look like he was healthy, right? And I stuck a pin in that, and I thought to myself, obviously this is a number 2 and a number 3 seed, which means they're going to meet in the second round. And if Jaylen Brown isn't healthy, obviously that's going to give the Knicks a chance because the Knicks are as healthy as I can remember them being coming into the playoffs. Now, Jalen Brunson is obviously walking off the floor every game with something, but he's coming back. Josh Hart went down with a crazy wrist or lower back, whatever injury you want to call it, but he's ready to go too. If the Knicks are coming into this series healthy and the Celtics are still a little nicked up, that's something where that my mind goes. Like, didn't Jason Tatum take a hard fall in the Orlando series? Like, what's the overall health of your team like right now?
It's spotty. You know, Drew Holiday, it looked like he practiced over the last 2 games. I think that's something you have to account for too. If you're New York here, is he limited? Is he hobbled? Yeah. Is it something that could be aggravated as the series goes on? Because those hamstring things linger. Yeah. Practice last 2 days. We didn't see him out there today, but that's not unusual. He's usually gone by the time things open up. So it looks like he's going to be good to go to me. Missed the last 3 games of the last series. He was great in the first 2. The Celtics won his minutes by 19 points per 100 there. And the defense on Paolo was important across the board. You can imagine him guarding Towns. You can imagine him guarding Brunson like he did for most of the year. So that's a swing factor there. Jalen's been effective. And that was obviously the massive concern coming in the playoffs for the Celtics is that Knicks game, what he looked like that night, needing to come out after 20 minutes or whatever it was in the third quarter there, not playing into overtime. Got a shot shortly after that, and he's been a different guy since. So the shooting's there. The minutes are there. He played 41 minutes twice in the first round, and there were definitely moments where he looked in some pain. He's definitely not flying up and down the floor and dunking out of his shoes like Jaylen Brown usually does. But I'll give him this. He wanted to play through it late in the year to figure out how to be effective through it. And it looked like that worked out for him. And today he said the knee's structurally sound there. So just a bruise he's dealing with, and he's dealing with it pretty well right now. So things to look at. Tatum's got the bruise on his wrist, right, after his fall. He averaged 36 after coming back from it. So no major concerns on the Boston side, but 3 things to look at.
Yeah, when I think about those wing positions, I think about Mikal, who's never missed a game in his entire career.
Unreal.
And who's somehow playing his best basketball as the minutes are piling, right? Like he's playing more minutes in the playoffs and he's playing as effective as possible. That's why I think this is an important matchup. If Mikal Bridges can somehow win this Jaylen Brown matchup and outplay him on the offensive end, and on top of that, help limit him on the defensive end, because he has this, wherever this energy comes from for him, he has it. You've also got a roster of guys who are accustomed to playing, number one, playing through injuries, and number two, playing 40, 42, 44 minutes. And kind of like that being the norm. So I think if the Knicks can somehow make this series go longer, that would benefit them, right? Obviously. But it's tough because the Celtics are a team, like you're mentioning, these guys are all injured. And then Jason Tatum comes back, and even though he's a little nicked up, has 36 or whatever it is. So it's tough. But I think at the end of the day, it's really just going to come down to, for the Knicks, just discipline in terms of the Celtics are just so – they're so surgical with how they get at you. And if you're just even a half a fraction of a second behind, they're going to beat you. And the Knicks have been that, right? Like I mentioned in that Pistons series, Pistons got open looks. Pistons got good looks. They just couldn't make them, right? And when the Pistons do get some more players around Cade Cunningham that can, do what they need to do. Like Beasley, for example, on the end of the game, just lets the ball go through his fingertips. That's the season right there.
He had an open look.
Yeah, it was catch the ball. I couldn't believe it. If you put a serviceable player in that position, this series could still be going, right? So the Pistons are going to be scary. That was one big thing out of the series. The Knicks had all the respect in the world for what the Pistons were able to do. Everyone's sitting there like, look, Cade Cunningham is about to be a superstar in this league, and we were just able to contain him this time. But in the future, you get him some more weapons, they're going to be a load to deal with. Well, the Celtics have all those weapons, guys. So how are you going to be able to combat it? It's difficult. This team couldn't get them during the regular season, and during the first 3 games, it wasn't even close. So you're asking us to kind of bank on just that one game 4, where obviously it went to overtime. But can they consistently do that? I don't know. They'll have to show us.
Yeah, and the Tatum thing's big. Like, are they going to be able to contain him around the screens, all that sort of stuff? They're usually dropping back off him, which can give him open looks. White's going to find open looks. All these guys are going to get their threes off. And the Knicks don't take a ton of threes. And so when I look at that, when I look at some of the lineup stuff, I know the fans complain about, I'm sure you hear it too all the time, the rotations and minutes or whatever else it might be here. That first round series going 6, almost going 7 after they fall behind by 7 late. They got away with the Hardaway thing, obviously, there. And what was it, game 4?
Yeah.
So this whole season's been about Tibbs being under fire, it feels like. And listen, I like the way he's handled it. It feels like he's just being himself. Doesn't look like he's under pressure. Doesn't sound like he's under pressure here. But, talk to any Knicks fan, talk to anybody around that team, and it feels like this is an important run for him. And the team just never fully gelled around what his teams usually look like to me this year. So I want to talk a little bit about the coaching matchup going into this series, because during the year, obviously it was a 4-0 matchup. There was the, Oklahoma City, Cleveland record everyone talked about here against the top teams in the league. To me, the biggest thing I can't get past here is the coaching mismatch in this series. When I looked at a couple things coming into it, the big one I mentioned earlier, you're up 3, Tatum's coming down the floor. He's got OG one-on-one. I'm a foul guy in that situation. I don't know how they didn't foul him. He hits a 3. They go to overtime. They win in that spot. I think just from afar, again, I've watched every Knicks game this year, but I think there's been opportunities for them to maybe flip some lineup stuff, balance things a little bit more, get Bridges more involved. Trying to think of some other examples during the year of this matchup specifically. But to me, the 3-point difference between these two teams, Joe wanting this team to get up a ton of threes. The Knicks really not able to get up a lot of threes. And maybe that's Tibbs, maybe that's personnel here. But I think just from a game plan standpoint, the way they've covered Tatum, a lot of different stuff I can point to here. Joe has really had the edge on Tibbs in these games. And I think that's been a big part of how these games have gone so far. And, when I look at the rosters, when I look at the talent here, and I know you mentioned the health earlier, but this shouldn't have been a 4-0 regular season series. This shouldn't have been a couple games here where the Knicks just look incapable of even hanging with Boston. Like, this is a good team. It's a team that was like 30 games over 500 against everybody else. I don't fully get why they haven't been able to play Boston close in most of these games, most of these minutes. And I can't look anywhere but the coaching. And I'm not a blame the coach kind of guy, but I hear enough Knicks fans shouting that at me. I see enough of these games where I'm like, oh, that wasn't great. And I do think there's some pressure on Tibbs here going into this one. He's going to have to narrow this gap. I think it's going to fall on him.
Yeah, just looking at the regular season right now, we got Mike Malone, who got fired in the last few weeks of the season. You got Taylor Jenkins, who got fired. You have a bunch of guys. You got JB Bickerstaff getting fired, going to Detroit and tripling their win count. You got Kenny Atkinson taking that job, the Cleveland job, and now they're the number 1 seed in basketball, right? So it's tough, right? Sometimes you do have to make a coaching call, right? That being said, there's an argument to be made that last year the Knicks don't get to 50 wins if it wasn't for Tibbs, right?
He's been great. He's been great.
Right, but this is not last year. This is this year, right? And the same applies. The same way we say, that Jalen Brunson's job description changes because now he has all these weapons around him. The same can be said for Tibbs, right? You're what you have to do with these pieces might change because you might not be able to use this year's roster the same way you used last year's roster, right? So, like, just looking in the first round, and I asked Karl Anthony Towns about this today. He's saying that, it doesn't matter if I get shots or I don't get shots. As long as we win, I'm okay. Right. But there is a correlation between how many shots and makes and points Karl Anthony Towns has and how many games the Knicks win. It's usually a good thing when Cat takes a lot of shots. Right now, granted, Tibbs is saying, hey, we don't want Cat to force shots, but you don't want anyone to force shots. You want to find ways to get them the ball. Right. And that's been a frustration point among a lot of people who are watching these Knicks games is that, hey, look, you've got this guy that you traded Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo for, who's an all-star starting center who averaged 24 and 13 in the regular season. And we can't get him more than 10 shots in a game. We can't get him more touches to make things happen. So
that makes me think right there, because what the biggest thing I looked at from the stat sheet in these games during the year was, and it popped right off the page to me, Towns had 2 threes a game against Boston. Just 2 3-point attempts a game in those Boston games.
Yeah.
They took him off the line and the Knicks couldn't produce those shots from him. And that's where he's the most dangerous, obviously.
Yeah. And that some of that, Jalen Brunson will say some of that falls on him because he's the point guard. He's the floor general. It's his responsibility to get everyone the ball and to get guys in rhythm. But that being said, when you look at his job, he's an incredible scorer, but right next to him, you got Mikal Bridges, you got OG Anunoby, you got Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart can make plays. So his job is also hard because, number one, he's the guy that can score on anybody. I think he averaged close to 30 or more than 30 against the Celtics. Even though you got Drew Holiday and Derek White, he's still finding a way to get it done. But at the same time, he's got to make sure he gets other guys involved because you can't win a game by yourself, right? And the Knicks had this stretch during the regular season when Jalen Brunson was out where Cat was getting his touches and OG was getting his touches and Mikal was getting his touches and everybody was thriving. But at the end of the day, you're a better team when Jalen's out there to hit shots like he hit against Ausar Thompson for the series the other day. That was a ridiculous shot. So that's kind of going to be something to watch out here for the distribution of the ball, how many touches different players get, where they get them, how Jalen is kind of reading what the Celtics are trying to do. But at the end of the day, good things happen when Karl Anthony Towns has the ball. He's not going to say it because it's not, what I'm saying? It doesn't, obviously a guy's not going to come out there and say, hey, I need to take more shots, but the numbers speak for themselves. You don't trade for a guy like Cat if you don't think he's a guy that can shoulder a load more than 10 shots a game in a round against the playoffs. So I think that's definitely something to watch out for. Cat. Hey, when the Knicks lost to Detroit in game 2, that very next game, Cat came out aggressive and they won that game. So they know they can win when Cat is aggressive. And I think that's going to have to be a key this series because we know what Drew Holiday can do. We know what Derek White can do on that defensive end. But if Cat can win that Porzingis matchup, and they've had their wars because he was in Minnesota and Porzingis was in Dallas, they've gone back and forth with each other. That would be special to watch for sure.
Yeah, it was interesting hearing them both talk about each other today. Different practices. I think of the Brunson thing obviously coming out of that series because of how out of this world he played, and everyone saw the shot. He played well against Boston during the year. In that last game, he was fantastic. He got his shot off. He was able to get to his floaters and 10 assists and all that. So he was effective. Towns, they put Tatum on him. It worked in the earlier games. And then Towns broke free for the 34, I think it was, in that last game. He was able to torch Tatum in that game. And that's, no small feat. I thought that was impressive, especially without the 3. in that game. He was just hitting flip shots over him, backing him
Yeah.
down. He was
That's because
dominant.
teams like to combat Cat with a wing or a smaller guy, right? And the hope is that someone smaller but stronger can get him off of his spots. But Cat's eating that up. If you give Cat deep post position, he's going to that jump hook, right? I think in that last game or in game, what was it, 4? He's fading out of bounds, turn around. It's crazy that his bag is ridiculous, right? So you have to get him into positions where he can be effective. So you have to hunt him in some of these matchups, like you mentioned. Yeah, he torched it. Like that was your word. He torched Boston in that last matchup. So if they're able to go back to that was the most competitive matchup. Maybe we could see a whole bunch of games go to overtime.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering if they're going to stay in that alignment, because I thought Brunson fared decently against Holiday. We'll see if Holiday's even available. I thought they stashed Porzingis on Hart for a lot of those minutes and just try to dare him to shoot threes. So that was what you saw for a lot of these games. And I thought the Knicks actually were able to beat that in that last game, and they were able to put up points and they were able to be effective. Hart, I'll give him this. The three wasn't there, but he'll drive and he'll hit those floaters and he'll attack guys inside if they're ignoring them. And obviously he can sneak free on the offensive glass too. So, those 4 guys got it going. The OG stuff, it blows my mind, because sometimes, you cover a team, you cover the Celtics, you're a Celtics fan, you only watch the games, teams play against your team. And so OG had this brilliant year. He's scoring 25 points left and right. He's breaking through offensively, super efficient. And then in this matchup, he just didn't do much. And, you mentioned the lack of involvement, where they're spreading the ball around, where they're getting guys like Towns involved. And to me, I do think the game plan a little bit for Boston's going to be, and it was last round against Paolo, let Brunson go off, let him get his points, let him do his thing. Maybe Towns gets some post-ups over Tatum and hits a bunch of 2s, but we're not giving up 3s. We're not giving up points to the other guys. And what does that amount to in the end? Even if Brunson has 30, even if Towns has 20 or 30, shooting 2s. I think that's going to be their game plan there. And they're going to have to figure out a way to get Bridges going. They're going to have to figure out a way to get OG going. Some of the guys off the bench you mentioned. I do think that's where Robinson can help too. Offensive rebounds, second chance points, that breaks things up a little bit for them. But, I haven't loved OG's games against Boston during this year. I thought Bridges was relatively uninvolved at times in those games. And I think that spread to other games throughout the year too for him in an up and down season. So you're looking at the role guys in this series. Obviously, Boston struggled last series. New York struggled in this matchup. So who's going to break through there? The Porzingises and Hausers and Pritchards of the world, or the OGs and Bridges and McBrides of the world?
Yeah, I mean, another guy you got to look at. There's 2 guys you got to look at. Number 1, Landry Shamet. If he gets some time off the bench, this is a guy who's got playoff experience. But there's another guy that we know is going to get some time off the bench, and that's Campaign. And Campaign's a guy who will come in and get you 9 points in 9 seconds, right? He's a guy he's going to take the first available shot, and he thinks it's a good shot, and it's going to go in sometimes if you give him just a little bit of room. So the Knicks, but that's the thing. At the end of the day, the Knicks had the worst performing bench in the NBA, where you're talking about points, because they just didn't have these options in terms of guys being out. But on top of that, when they did get their opportunity, sometimes they didn't produce, right? So the bench is going to have to show up in a lot of ways if they're going to compete with Boston, because we already know what Pritchard can do. Hauser's another guy who can come off the bench and just light you up from 3-point range. You guys have options, right? So that's going to be something to watch. On top of that, it's just tough, right? When you just think about you have this 4-0 in the regular season, just knowing that in the back of your mind, that's got to weigh on you. But at the same time, the Knicks.
What were the guys saying about that?
The Knicks were 1-3 against the Pistons, and then they came out and flipped this series. But at the same time, the series was closer than 3-2 might look, right? If some of those calls go the other way, we're looking at a series, like I keep saying, that's still going on right now. So it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like. But I think when you're just looking at history, you're looking at the difference in terms of, this is one team that's coming off of winning the title, and this is another team that hasn't beaten any real title contenders in terms of being 0-10 against the Cavs, in terms against Boston and against OKC. At a certain point, you are what your record tells you, but there are some swing pieces here, right? If OG and Mikal can do what they did to Cade against Tatum and Brown, that changes the entire dynamic of the series, right? Then that's okay. How are your role players are faring? So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see what game 1 looks like. I think game 1 will tell us a lot. I think I wouldn't be surprised if the Knicks go in there and go to Boston and lose games 1 and 2. I wouldn't be surprised if they come home and they lose game 3. I think that would be where it becomes a problem.
Yeah, and that's what I foresee right now. I do think as I look a little closer that there's some paths to competitiveness for New York here, and they will have to carry over some of the stuff they did in game 6 late there to that game 1, just having a small handful of days off here. How do the guys feel about that 0-4 thing? Because obviously on the Celtics side, that doesn't matter now. Regular season's regular season. This is 0-0 now. It doesn't mean anything. And they've played that hard. Like, no one was saying, oh, yeah, it's good. We solved some stuff and blah, blah, blah. Like, they were really trying to push back against that being a major advantage going into the series.
Yeah, I think for the Knicks, the fact that Mitchell Robinson didn't come back until late February, they know that they're a completely different team. Just having him available for different lineups, it changes the depth. Like I mentioned, it changes.
And you know what? I laughed at that for a lot of the year, but then when I saw him, I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah, it's a real impactful piece because everybody there was a chance that Mitch got traded at the deadline for another center, like for example, Nick Richards, right, or for a Mark
and
Williams,
there was a play in that 4th game. He's up at the top of the arc, switched on to Tatum, and just pokes the ball loose from him, gets him a turnover. They score the other way. Like he had some impressive plays in that game. He can get out in the perimeter, obviously the rolling and rebounding. He does a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and coincidentally, when he's back, that's the closest game that we've had all year between these two teams.
Now,
right?
here's my question: Can he play a lot of minutes?
His conditioning is better, right? He's been slowly but steadily building a good conditioning base. I think that the real issue or the real concern when he first came back was, would he re-injure himself? Like, would he find a way to get hurt? He's fallen and he's gotten right back up. He's proven to be pretty durable so far, right? So I think we'll see. I think Mitch right now can play 20 minutes and be okay. If Mitch can give you 20 minutes, maybe even 24, you're looking at a guy who can make a really big impact on this game. So on this series. So we'll see. I know Tibbs is chomping at the bit to use this lineup because he hasn't really had Mitch and Cat together for entirely too long. But now being able to deploy that against the Celtics, they'll be able to make a difference.
And so that does lead me to my question here. X factor in this series for each team. I will go Robinson for New York for all the reasons we've talked about. And I will go Drew for Boston for the injury reason, for the defensive reasons, the matchups there. He was really good offensively in this matchup too. He can back down Brunson a little bit, try to tire him out offensively. I think that's where the Knicks will try to hide Brunson defensively on him. So he'll have to exploit that when he gets his opportunities. And again, he was a game changer early in that Orlando series against Paolo. It was a mostly walkthrough series for those first 2 games until he went down, and then it was a much closer series. So I am going Drew Holiday on the Boston side of this series. Who's yours for each of these teams?
I think for New York, for me, without a question, it's going to be OG Anunoby. If OG can look like Kawhi, which is what we've seen him on if he can look like a lower level version of Kawhi, I think that is enough to give the Knicks a chance in every single game. If Tatum's not walking onto the floor, averaging 33.5 on ridiculous efficiency, if he's got to work for those, right? And if he's having an off night, there were more 8 of 21 nights for Cade Cunningham than there were 11 of 21 nights, right? That tells you what type of defender he is. If OG's able to have that type of impact on Tatum and then also able to give you 20 points on the offensive end, this will be a series, right? It won't be a series if Peyton Pritchard is coming onto the floor every game and give you 20. And that's where I think it's going to have to come down to for the Knicks, because game plan discipline has been an issue in terms of just not accounting for guys that are going to be able to come on the floor and flip the series in a matter of seconds, right? I think obviously defending Kristaps Porzingis from the 3-point line is going to be an issue for just schematically for a team that likes to play drop a lot. But in terms of just like having a puncher's chance at even staying in some of these games, you got to have OG limit Jason Tatum as much as he can, and you got to keep track of Pritchard, because if Pritchard is able to come in and change the game in the minutes he's playing, it's been like that for this team all year. It's been the same old story. Somebody comes off the bench or somebody that you're not expecting is going to come in and light you up for 15 or 18 points, and those are going to be the points that make the difference. So I'm going OG for the Knicks and Pritchard for you guys.
And how do you feel about the series? We're 2 days out. Game 1's Monday, 7:00. I haven't changed much. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. I do see some paths to competitiveness for the Knicks, but when the games come down the wire, even if they're closer, even if it's more competitive than what we saw during the year, I think the Celtics are going to pull out a lot of these games late because of their ability to score and just all the mismatches they can attack. So I am going Celtics in 4 here.
Whew, you pulling the sweep. Oh, man. I want to believe that the Knicks are able to get at least one at home, right? So I've got it. If they lose game 3, I've got sweep. If they win game 3, I think it'll obviously it'll have to go 5, but there's a chance it goes 6 if they win game 3. I think that game 3 is the one that you really have to look at. So I got Celtics in 5, maybe 6, depending on which game the Knicks win. If they win one, because they could also get swept if they're not guarding the 3-point line. Like, let's be real. We watched all the 4 games in the regular season, man. We saw how that went, right? So for me to try to think there's going to be some grand deviation from what we've seen between these two teams already. Now, obviously, Mitch was a big factor here, but even adding in Mitch, it's just you've got the reigning champs and you got guys that haven't really been able to compete with any real championship contenders. So we'll see.
And there is just something. These guys, and they're talking about it at practice today, and it's like, oh, you got to go into MSG, and you got to base that environment. So, like, guys go into MSG, and they play at their best. Tatum's done it. Porzingis has done it. Guys on this roster have won games there throughout this year, and others. This isn't an environment that I think is going to overwhelm them. In fact, I think it's probably going to bring the best out of them. But I'm interested to see, because I haven't been to a playoff game there, Kristian. Might be a little different.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Number one, in terms of home court advantage, the Pistons won 2 of their games. The only 2 games were won at MSG. So
right?
You tell me what type of home court advantage that is. Number 2, it is a real home court advantage because I used to cover the Nets at Barclays Center, and the most electrifying moment while I was covering the Nets was when Kevin Durant hit that ridiculous shot, right? It felt like that. It felt like Barclays Center caught fire and everyone was trying to get out the building, right? That's what it's like at MSG every single night. It is ridiculous. The energy is through the roof. You got celebrities all across. It's an insane experience. And if no one's gotten to a Knicks playoff game, I know the ticket prices are high, but there's a reason. It's something you won't ever forget.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the hype of the series. Both fan bases are going to be electrified. I think Boston's going to be crazy on Monday night. It's warm again here. The last couple of weeks, people are outside. They're outside in New York, too. I'm sure I'm excited to get down there. A lot of friends, a lot of food, a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to there.
Oh, yeah.
And looking forward to your coverage, too, man. Kristian Winfield, New York Daily News. He's on the front page on Sunday.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome, man. Go check out his work. He's at Chris Splashed on Twitter. And we'll be following your coverage throughout, man. And check out ours here, post-game every night, as always. CLNS Media and Celtics All Access. Want to shout out one more time, if you're trying to go to these games or any other, check out the Game Time app. $20 off your first ticket purchase over there right now. Support them, support our coverage, and go see some games this spring. It's great weather out there, big games. You can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Told you about it earlier. Go get it. CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Go check out the playoffs, baseball, whatever you want to see over there. I'll probably go try to see the Mets while I'm in town.
Oh, you're a big baseball guy?
Yeah, big Red Sox fan growing up. I wanted to cover baseball when I was young, and I'm glad I did.
I could never do it, man. I was always falling asleep. I couldn't do it. I've gone to a couple my uncle works at City Field, so I've gone to a couple baseball games, and it's cool if you're like, I want to bring someone on a date. But in terms of like actually enjoying sports, it's basketball number 1. Football I like watching, but really it's Jets games. I'm a big Jets fan. But in terms of my second favorite sport, UFC all day, man. I can watch. I'm about to put the UFC fights on right now once we get off of this, man. Stop playing. I love me some UFC.
What are the Jets going to do, man? I mean, that's a question every year, but
man, I get depressed just thinking about my Jets sometimes, man. But we have a good head coach. I like our head coach. I was talking to a Lions fan not too long ago, and they were kind of upset that they let their assistant coach go to the Jets of all teams. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a good thing. And on top of that, we avoided the whole Shedeur Sanders fiasco. There's a world where the Jets took Shedeur, and we don't know what that world is like. Now we won't know, right? So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the direction of the team. I'm okay with us continuing to build out our offensive line and make responsible decisions as an organization. Jets, Jets. Let's go. I'm with it. 11-6.
All right, that answers my question. I was gonna ask Pats or Jets better season next year.
Yeah, no, not definitely Jets better season than the Pats. I'm sorry. I don't know. Unless you guys lucked into somebody in the draft that I don't know about. I don't know if you guys are gonna do better than us, but we'll see.
They drafted an offensive lineman. So if that swings things that dramatically, that was a great pick.
That is always the step in the right direction. So responsible franchises at work.
Not gonna change things overnight too much, but we got a lot of Pats coverage over here too. You can keep checking that out, and our Celtics coverage again Monday 7 after that game, live post game. Appreciate you, Kristian, coming on here for the first time. Been looking forward to this for a while, man. I'm glad to finally get you on.
Hell yeah! Thanks for having me, man. Maybe we do something else if the Knicks win a game, or if they win 2 games, maybe we do an emergency one or whatever. Let's do it.
I'll be eating some crow. People will be saying I jinxed the Celtics for sure.
Yeah, right. Imagine if the Knicks flip this series. If the Knicks come, well, before we go, let's throw this at you. What if the Knicks come out and win game 1? Would that be would that on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you pressing the big red button? Where's the panic meter for you if the Celtics lose game 1?
To me, game 1s can go any direction. I think game 1s mean the least of any. And it's so crazy because there's that stat, like 60% of teams that win game 1 win the series. Yeah. I never feel like it's like that. Like I see teams win game 1 all the time where you're like, oh shit, I didn't think this series is going to go this way. And then it doesn't. So
I have
if there's any game,
if
there's any game I think the Knicks are going to get, it's game 1.
I think that if you think that, I don't know, because you have to remember this is a team that didn't beat Boston all year, and you're telling me their very next for their first game against the Celtics is going to be a win that's going to give them all the confidence in the world that they can go in and win on your home court against a team that they didn't beat in the regular season, knowing that the reason that these games weren't competitive was Mitchell Robinson. So Mitchell Robinson is back, and now you're winning game 1 on their own home floor. If the Knicks win game 1, they're winning the series.
All right, we'll look at that different ways then.
There you go.
I'm looking forward to it, though. I'm ready to be shocked because I know, it goes that way sometimes. But, I looked at all the evidence in front of me, and this is what I came to here, man. And,
everyone's saying they're going to lose game 1. Like, I'm not saying that there's a chance of that. I'm not saying that to go put money on the Jets win on the Knicks winning game 1. I'm just saying if there's an alternate reality where they do somehow win that first game, I think the Knicks will be going to the Eastern Conference Finals.
And I just want to let you know again, I had Celtics in 6 last series. So, I'm not someone here saying sweep lightly. Like this is just how I feel. I'll tell it like it is. I hope people know that I mean this when I say it. So yeah, appreciate you, man. Again, we'll do it again for sure. And again, people go check out his coverage in the New York Daily News throughout this series. Looking forward to this one. Going to be a lot of fun on both sides. I already see some Knicks fans up in the chat here. I'm sure that's only going to increase as the series goes on. So we will talk to you Monday. I'm going on Knicks Fan TV later if people want to check that out. I've been on there before. I know you've been on there before too.
Yeah.
So gonna go talk to the Knicks side of things.
Yeah. So fun. My guy CP don't play around. So
I'll be on there 9:30 tonight. So go check that out if you want to hear some more Celtics Knicks talk. And then we'll have some stuff for you tomorrow before game 1. And that's it for us here. For Kristian Winfield, I'm Bobby Manning. We are out of here. Peace. Good night.
Later.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way? Let's fly Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke